Alcaraz splits with his coach Ferrero after 7 years together. Spanish tennis player Carlos Alcaraz announced on Wednesday the end of his collaboration with coach Juan Carlos Ferrero, bringing to a closer relationship that delivered 6 Grand Slam titles and the world #1 ranking. Ferrero began coaching Alcaraz when he was 15 years old and guided him to several titles on the ATP Tour before he became a force to be reckoned with at Grand Slam level, evolving from a claycourt specialist into a player dominant on all surfaces. Thank you for turning childhood dreams into reality. We started this journey when I was barely a kid, and throughout all this time you've accompanied me on an incredible journey, on and off the court. And I've enjoyed every step with you so much, Alcaraz wrote in a statement. We've managed to reach the top, and I feel that if our sporting paths had to separate, it had to be from up there. From the place we always worked for and always aspired to reach, he added. Alcaraz ended the year with titles at the French Open and the US Open, while winning 8 championships in total as he secured the year-end #1 ranking for the second time in his career. He did not specify why he was separating from Ferrero. Now times of change are coming for both of us, new adventures and new projects. But I'm certain that we'll face them in the right way, giving the best of ourselves, as we've always done. Always adding, I wish you all the best from the bottom of my heart in everything that comes, he said. Ferrero says goodbye to Alcaraz. I would have liked to continue. The Spanish player's coach issued a statement through social media. After Carlos Alcaraz's statement on social media, in which he thanked him for turning childhood dreams into reality, Juan Carlos Ferrero made a separate post saying, I would have liked to continue. I'm convinced that good memories and good people always find a way to cross paths again. With these words, he hints that he would like to be able to coach Carlos again in the future. The two part ways after the Mercian has won 6 Grand Slams with him, 2 Roland Garros, 2 Wimbledon titles and 2 US Opens. Now Samu Lopez, also very close to Alcaraz, takes over from Ferrero and will be his coach starting in 2026. Ferrero's full statement. Today is a difficult day. One where it's hard to find the words. Saying goodbye is never easy, especially when there are so many shared experiences behind it. We have worked hard, grown together, and shared unforgettable moments. I want to thank you for the time, the trust, the learning, and above all, for the people who have surrounded me throughout this journey. I take with me laughter, challenges overcome, conversations, support in difficult moments, and the satisfaction of having been part of something unique. Today a very important stage of my life comes to an end. I close it with nostalgia, but also with pride and excitement for what may come. I know that everything I've lived has prepared me to be better. Thank you, Carlos, for the trust, the effort and for making your way of competing make me feel so special. I wish you all the best, both professionally and personally. Thanks also to the entire team for making my work easier over all these years. With you I've learned that work isn't just tasks or results, but the people who walk alongside you. Each one of you leaves a mark on me that I will never forget. We've been a great team despite the difficulties. I'm sure you'll continue to reap success. I would have liked to continue. I'm convinced that good memories and good people always find a way to cross paths again. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Samuel Lopez remains as Alcaraz's coach after his split with Ferrero. The Alicante-born coach will lead the ATP World #1 next season, which begins with the tour in the Antipodes. Samuel Lopez will be the coach who leads Carlos Alcaraz next season, according to Marca, and the one who accompanies him on the tour of the Antipodes, after the World #1 and Juan Carlos Ferrero announced on Wednesday that they are parting professional ways. Álvaro Alcaraz, the older brother of the best tennis player on the planet, could take on a more prominent role. Until now, he has served as a sparring partner. Lopez, who began his career as a coach at 23, has formed a strong technical partnership alongside Ferrero, whom he replaced at several tournaments, such as the 2024 Australian Open, when Juanqui was recovering from a knee arthroscopy. In the 2024 preseason, he officially joined the team of the best tennis player in the world. That work between Ferrero and Samu was fostered during the years both worked side by side at the Ferrero Tennis Academy in Vienna. The two coaches have alternated this season at tournaments on the calendar and coincided at 4 events: the Barcelona Open Bank Sabadell, Roland Garros, Wimbledon and the ATP Finals in Turin. In all 4 events, Carlitos reached at least the final. Last preseason, both introduced some innovations to Alcaraz's game that have been a success, such as adding 5 grams to the neck of the racket and a serve motion without pauses to gain fluidity. In fact, Ferrero and Samu Lopez were recently awarded as the best coaches on the ATP Tour. After the announcement of the professional split between Juan Carlos Ferrero and Carlos Alcaraz, Samu will take the reins, a decision he has accepted in recent hours. Juan Carlos Ferrero spoke on Monday night on the microphones of the program El Larguero, where he detailed the beginnings of his protégé, Carlos Alcaraz, and how the professional relationship between the former world number one and the new sensation of world tennis came about. Without leaving current events aside, Ferrero also spoke about the injury that has ruled Carlitos out of the upcoming tournament in Rome. Behind the new icon of world tennis, Carlos Alcaraz, is a team led by Juan Carlos Ferrero, former world number one and current coach of the Merchant since he was 15 years old. The Valencian had significant offers at the time from established players in the rankings but chose to back a very young Merchant in whom he saw something different from the very first moment. In his appearance on the radio show El Larguero, Ferrero reviewed his journey with Carlitos and what both he and his pupil have been experiencing in recent months. He came to play at the academy when he was 12 or 13, as we have tournaments here that at a national level are among the best, and you could hear that there was a kid who played very well for his age, and obviously that was Carlitos. The first time I saw him really compete was when he won his first ATP point at 14 in Murcia, and I went to watch the match he lost. But at 14 he already showed those differences you can see in a player. At that age he was a bit messy because he played a lot of drop shots. With his forehand he already made a difference, but as I say, physically he was like a piece of spaghetti, and you could already see very special things. I liked him a lot. We hadn't even talked about working together yet, but I already liked him. Beginnings. It was partly due to the relationship I had with his manager and all the players he had managed. When I finished with Zverev, he knew I was free and offered me the possibility of coaching Carlos, telling me to think about it carefully, that it was very different from what I had experienced with Zverev, who was already world number 3 or 4, and you get used to the circuit with planes, hotels. With Carlitos it was different. You had to travel with him to tournaments by car, go to Brazil and travel across the country by car to play 2 or 3 tournaments. I thought about it carefully. For me it was a personal bet and also professional growth as a coach, to work with a kid from a young age and prepare him well, help him improve. I proposed it, told my family, and they agreed, and the closeness also helped. Progression. I was clear that he was going to be very good, the question was when. Whenever I've put him to train with players better than him, he's always delivered, and that tells you a lot about a player and their ability to adapt to situations that become more complicated and solve them with that character he had. That tells you where things are heading. Now he's one step away from the top 5, but in December you had to imagine it. When I talked about the top 15 it was a big objective. When you're close to 100 and want to move up to 15, you need an almost perfect year, it's a very significant jump. But if out of all the tournaments he's played he's only lost 2 matches, it's hard to imagine starting a year like that. Comparison with Nadal. Rafa transmits something impressive, and we've seen that Carlos does too. What we have to do is try to enjoy both of them to the fullest. Before, people focused on Rafa because of his achievements, and now if they also focus a bit on Carlos, welcome it. Being his coach, I have a great time watching him play, and that's incredible for me, because I should be suffering. Serious warning from Ferrero to Carlos Alcaraz for playing so many exhibitions. Harsh criticism of Carlos Alcaraz over exhibitions. Sports journalist Steve Flink says that Carlos has every right to play these kinds of matches, although he should focus on preparing the first Grand Slam of the season to the maximum. Carlos Alcaraz continues to be criticized for the exhibition matches played in the United States. Despite having received criticism from current players such as Novak Djokovic to retired legends like Renee Stubbs, the comments against him do not seem to be stopping, and now legendary journalist Steve Flink has strongly criticized the player from El Palmar. Alcaraz has never shown us his best version in Australia, and I don't think Ferrero and his team were thrilled with the idea of him spending the preseason in the United States playing exhibitions, Flink said in an interview with the YouTube channel Courtside with Balanson Tennis. The American journalist does not doubt that Carlos has every right to play these kinds of matches, for which he earns money, although he points out that the best thing for him would be not to take part in them and prepare the first Grand Slam of the season to the maximum. He has every right in the world. But he has a whole lifetime to make money. He has so much time. I think the wisest thing would have been to skip it to prepare the first Grand Slam of the season to the maximum, Flink adds. Regarding the Spaniard's defeat to Djokovic in the quarterfinals of the Australian Open, the sports journalist notes that Carlitos played below his usual level. We'll never know if that was a determining factor in the loss to Novak, because the Serbian played a great match. But Carlos was not at his best. Despite the criticism over the exhibitions, Flink expects Alcaraz to have a good first tournament of the year at the Australian Open, where he can show his best version. It will be fascinating to see if Alcaraz can show his best version in Australia. Just as Sinner and Roland Garros. Perhaps both will achieve a clean sweep of Grand Slams this year. That would be great, the journalist concludes.